until all our daughters are safe, until all our children have families, until all our families have homes, until all our parents are cared for. We'll be here.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream.
Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Matt Nacon. I'm the president of the law firm of Wickenshurster Panza, and this year I have the honor of serving as the president of the board of the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. On behalf of the Legal Aid Board of Directors, our attorneys, our staff, I want to welcome you to this, our annual luncheon for our 114th year. My role today is to set the stage, and as usual, promise you that by 1:30 we'll be back in your offices and pursuing justice. One of the strengths of the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland has always been our consistency. You can call it our first-class quality control. Whatever year it is, we have helped thousands of our neighbors across our 5 counties who live on little money and carry little clout to better their lives. In one sense, this year has been predictably familiar. Hard, dedicated work filled with notable successes that have made our clients' lives better. Look at these statistics. These are the numerical shorthand for the impressive and indispensable work that our 52 full-time attorneys, our 35 staff, and our 678 lawyers who volunteered their pro bono services last year. Nearly 17,000 people were impacted by our cases last year, and we saved our clients a breathtaking $10.3 million. In addition to our direct client work, this has been a landmark year for important community change, with legal aid at the forefront every step of the way. Colleen will share with you much of this exciting news shortly. These accomplishments came to be because of our amazing team. Would all of the legal aid lawyers and staff please stand and be recognized? Thank you for all that you do. As a longtime member of the Legal Aid Board, I have the privilege to learn and observe from the great work of all of Legal Aid's talented staff, and all of them are terrific. But at our annual luncheon, we take the time to highlight some individual standouts, and you can read more about these on page 6 of your program book. Would Rachel, Jessica, and Barbara please join us up front? First, we present the Claude E. Clark Award, named for Legal Aid's director of nearly 4 decades. This award goes to team members for their outstanding service, professional performance, and commitment to Legal Aid's mission and Legal Aid's clients. This year's winners of the Claude E. Clark Award are Jessica Baclini, senior attorney in our Health and Opportunity Group, Rachel Riemann-Schneider, administrative assistant in our volunteer lawyers program, and Eric Zell, senior attorney in our economic justice group. Eric could not be with us today, but we will certainly get this award to him. Please join me in congratulating Jessica, Rachel, and Eric. Rachel, you better come back up a second. Rachel is also the winner of this year's Leadership Award. The Leadership Award is presented to an individual who makes legal aid a better organization, helps others around them to achieve more for legal aid clients, and creates a team for justice. We thank Rachel for her tireless efforts for Legal Aid's clients and her dedication to Legal Aid's mission. Congratulations, Rachel. Next, I am honored to present the C. Lionel Jones Lifetime Achievement Award. As the title suggests, this award goes to a person who has dedicated their life to legal aid. Today, we honor the incomparable Barbara Simmons. Barbara has worked for legal aid for more than 5 decades. Barbara is an intake specialist, the first person our clients encounter. For those we cannot serve, she is often the only person who a prospective client may have contact. She was always a true pro, friendly, caring, and offering our clients the utmost respect. In short, because of Barbara, they know they are heard. Congratulations, Barbara, and thank you. Now it is my honor to recognize some outstanding volunteers and community partners who make our volunteer program a success. Volunteer awards are highlighted on pages 10 and 11 of your program book. The Community Impact Award goes to 3 key partner organizations who extend legal aid's reach into our communities. Our clients are often referred to us and find their way to us through these organizations so that we can fulfill our mission. As I announce each name, would representatives of each group come to the stage? First, the Fatima Family Center, a Catholic Charities agency. Next, the Geauga County Bar Association. And the West Side Catholic Center. Thank you to our Community Impact Award winners. Your partnership means the world to us, and with you at our side, we have a much, much deeper reach into the community. As legal aid works to remove barriers to opportunity for our client community, we rely on the partnership of the private bar and the nearly 700 volunteer lawyers that come with that partnership. This year, 2 firms have distinguished themselves amongst all others in their commitment to pro bono efforts, and hence we recognize them with the Access to Justice Award. Please join me extending a hearty thank you, first to the law firm of McDonald Hopkins. And next to the law firm of Thompson Hine. Next, we present the Legacy of Justice Award to an individual whose significant accomplishments will endure well past their term of service. This year's recipient is my friend Pat Haggerty, a former member of Legal Aid's board and chair of the Pro Bono Committee. Pat is a strong and enduring voice for pro bono. He is a model of commitment to justice. Under Pat's leadership, the Act Two program for retired lawyers began and flourished. The Act Two program encourages retired attorneys to use their experience, to maintain their skills, and extend legal aid's reach into the communities by taking on pro bono cases. With pleasure, we present this year's Legacy of Justice Award to Pat Haggerty of Franz Ward. Our theme this year flows from the guiding words of Thurgood Marshall, the revered first African-American justice of the United States Supreme Court and the lawyer that argued Brown versus the Board of Education. In 1978, Justice Marshall urged us to take action when he said, "Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, pass it on." Some years later, Justice Marshall's colleague on the court, Sandra Day O'Connor, added a thought which illuminates how intertwined law and moral truth were for Justice Marshall. Justice O'Connor commented that Justice Marshall was constantly pushing and prodding us to respond not only to the persuasiveness of the legal argument, but also to the power of moral truth. Law and moral truth. Pass it on. Every day, Legal Aid's presence in our communities reinforces and passes along values of democracy and justice. The phrase "pass it on" embodies the ripple effect of legal aid for our lawyers, our staff, volunteers and clients. Our advocacy and our terrific results insert goodwill throughout the community with the hope of it boomeranging back. And boomerang back it does, with positive outcomes that are multiplied in ways you can only imagine.
If they proceed with this, we may have to move. We may have to take our daughter out of school.
I was 8 years old. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it was bad. Time stood still as I listened to these strangers telling my mom and dad how bad it really was. My parents were my rock, and they were scared. I could tell someone was trying to help us, but all I could see was my life about to fall apart. We could lose our home, my school, my friends. It seemed like darkness was closing in, but that wasn't the end. Those legal aid lawyers who dedicate their careers to removing barriers changed the course of my life. They helped us keep our home. I stayed in my school together with my friends. Suddenly, I was on a new path, full of life. I felt like everything I touched turned to gold. I felt inspired and felt moved to inspire others. And now, I make an impact running a research lab, a chance to make the world a better place. When I think back to all the acts of kindness throughout my life, all the intersecting paths that brought me to where I am now, it all comes back to that moment when my family was at a crossroads. And those compassionate lawyers who believe in the power of the law changed the direction of our lives. As Thurgood Marshall said, Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, pass it on.
Hello, everybody. My name is Colleen Cotter, and I am so proud to be the Executive Director of your Legal Aid Society in Northeast Ohio. Thank you for joining us today. We come together to reconnect, catch up, and celebrate our shared work for justice and equality and a better future for children like that girl in the video. Thank you, Matt, for your leadership as president of the board this year. Matt and I really enjoy working together, and this has been a tremendous year. We have the honor of working with an incredible board of directors, a few of whom will end their service with us this year, darn those term limits. And on behalf of Matt, our board, and our staff, I want to thank Jillian Charles, Dr. Phil Fastenau, Karen Giffen, Dolores Gray, Ron Johnson, and Ed Moore. Please stand to be recognized so we can thank you for your service. And I really want to thank each of our Legal Aid board members for your partnership and your wise counsel. Legal Aid board members, would you all please stand so we can recognize your leadership? The Legal Aid board and staff work together to speak out and help our clients speak up to protect their shelter, safety, and economic security. This time last year, I introduced you to the Campaign for Legal Aid. This is our comprehensive 5-year effort to raise the resources needed to grow and sustain legal aid's programs and build new opportunities to serve families living in poverty. Our goals with these funds are to serve more families through partnerships, remove barriers to opportunity, and elevate legal aid as a catalyst for community change. And also to invest in capital improvements in legal aid's offices in Cleveland, Elyria, Jefferson, and Painesville, and to grow legal aid's endowment for the future. And the campaign has met with tremendous success. We have a highly engaged campaign leadership and nearly 200 early supporters who represent the diverse fabric of this community, individuals, foundations, corporations, law firms. It is with great pride and deep gratitude to all of them that I can report to you today that we have already raised $9 million toward our $15 million goal, less than 2 years into our 5-year effort. But we will continue to push forward toward our goal, and we will get there. But meanwhile, we've already started to put these dollars to work. Change is happening in Northeast Ohio. As a result of the campaign, we are serving more families through more partnerships. We are removing barriers to opportunity, and we are a catalyst for community change. And we are just getting started. Take a look at what we've accomplished since our campaign started last year. We renovated our office, we added staff, we created new partnerships, all to better serve our community. Legal aid removes barriers to opportunity, resulting in greater stability and resilience for families. And that is a driver to moving families from poverty to greater engagement in our community. At Legal Aid, we know this. We know this because we survey our clients. They tell us things like, Legal Aid gave me my life back, helped me rebuild my personal credit, gave me independence, allowed me to stay in my home, which I love. We know this because we watch our clients transform their lives to become fully engaged in and leaders of our community, sometimes as legal aid board members. And now we have more than anecdotes. We have empirical evidence from a Center for Community Solutions study completed earlier this year. Their research finds that more than 50% of the clients we helped over a decade ago shared that they are still experiencing the benefits of our help. And these former clients reported improvements in their lives beyond the substantive issues we addressed. For example, let's say we saved a home from eviction. Those same clients report years later an improvement not only in their housing stability, but also in their financial, family, and health stability. Our work has a powerful ripple effect. This Center for Community Solutions study illustrates the strength of our organization and our partnerships both yesterday and today. Buoyed by these findings, we extend our reach even further. Allow me to focus on 3 initiatives made possible by the campaign: Legal Aid's engagement in Say Yes to Education, a Lead-Safe Cleveland, and Right to Counsel in Evictions. First, Say Yes to Education. This work relates to 2 of our campaign goals: serving more families through partnerships and removing barriers to opportunity. At Legal Aid, we often do things in unconventional ways. Where others see only adversarial relationships, we see potential partnerships. For example, it is true that school districts are indeed often opposing parties in our education law cases, but we jumped at the chance to collaborate with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to remove barriers for families. We have been an early partner in Say Yes to Education Cleveland, which recognizes the importance of family stability for student success. Legal Aid, with the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, is a key partner in the Say Yes effort, providing legal aid help to Cleveland families in cases involving shelter, safety, and economic security. Together, we can prevent the problems that create instability and disrupt a child's education. Like the child you saw in the video, we can work to ensure students today can pass on the warmth, compassion, and effectiveness of a good partnership. Next, our work to address lead poisoning, which underscores our ability to partner with others to be a catalyst for community change. 2 years ago, I shared with you our litigation strategy to create a lead-safe environment for children. That strategy was successful, and we made progress for our clients. And today, I am so excited to report on the next chapter of that story. The City of Cleveland invited Legal Aid to partner with them and others to craft a community solution. We gladly pivoted to this new role of collaboration. We worked with city, philanthropic, healthcare, education, housing, and community leaders to craft new legislation and develop the public-private partnership that will help implement it and make Cleveland a model for the nation. Talk about needing community change. Lead paint poisons children. And this past June, Cleveland City Council passed and Mayor Jackson signed landmark legislation aimed at making Cleveland a lead-safe city. As a result of this legislation, landlords will be required to test rental units for lead hazards and make rental units lead safe before they rent them. Parents can confidently find safe homes to raise their children. This is an extraordinary achievement, and we should all be so proud of Cleveland. And the third initiative, another example of Legal Aid's community change. Many of you have heard one of us from Legal Aid describe our work where we start with, there is no right to counsel in civil cases, even for something so basic as keeping a roof above your head. That is about to change. And in fact, we're going to need a new lead-in for our elevator speech. Just 8 weeks ago, Cleveland City Council passed and Mayor Jackson signed into law historic legislation creating a right to counsel for families facing eviction. Cleveland was only the fourth city in the country to establish this right. This community change came about as a result of a collaboration between legal aid, city council, the Cleveland Academy of Trial Attorneys, the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, Cuyahoga County, the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and leaders from our client community. We will work together to implement this new right to counsel, changing the way justice is delivered in our community. In fact, ensuring the delivery of justice. The size, duration, and ambition of this campaign underscores our confidence. We are sure of our abilities and the value of our programs and operations, of our potential to help substantially more individuals and families. We have the talent. We have the vision. I know this, and I just shared with you the evidence: a lead-safe Cleveland, right to counsel in evictions, and the community solutions study showing the ripple effect of our work. You can see why we chose Justice Marshall's challenge as our theme today. Once again, where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out. Because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, pass it on. Together, we will create a legacy of justice in Northeast Ohio. This is our community. This is our democracy. Speak out, pass it on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure I'll pay for this later, but Colleen Cotter is the reason there are 1,000 people in this room. Colleen is the reason we get done what we get done. Please give her a round of applause. Many of you who have been to this event before understand how important Congressman Louis Stokes was and has been to legal aid's growth and its history in Cleveland. For those of you who are new to us, Louis Stokes was a champion of the underdog and a guiding light for those who suffer poverty. Because of his importance to legal aid, we dedicate our highest honor in his name, the Louis Stokes Paragon Award, designed to honor those who serve as a model of excellence in the pursuit of justice.
I've had a long personal relationship with the Legal Aid Society. Sitting on the board of the Legal Aid Society is an opportunity to help promote the good that society does in our community.
This year, we are honored to present the Louis Stokes Paragon Award to the City of Cleveland. I invite Mayor Frank Jackson and city leaders, council leaders Kevin Kelly, Phyllis Cleveland, and Blaine Griffin, and all council members to come forward to accept this award on the city's behalf. We present the Louis Stokes Paragon Award in recognition of Cleveland's bold steps in 2019 to create a more just and equitable community. The recent passage and implementation of legislation to create a lead-safe Cleveland and establish a right to counsel and housing court mark Cleveland as a leader for justice, not only in Northeast Ohio, but nationwide. Mayor Jackson, members of Cleveland City Council, thank you for your individual leadership and your partnership as the city of Cleveland took this path. Because of you, Cleveland will be a city where people in poverty have greater access to safe housing and greater access to the justice system. You saw an injustice, you spoke out, you passed it on. Thank you and congratulations.
Before I lose the podium, I'd like to take a moment to underscore the support of my law firm, Wickens, Herzler, Panza, to the mission of legal aid. Our firm has been significantly involved in legal aid for decades. I think it started with my mentor, Rich Panza, who's here today, beginning his career with legal aid and then returning decades later to become board president. Since the time I started at Legal Aid started at Wickens more than 30 years ago, our lawyers have participated in advice clinics, we've done pro bono cases, and we have contributed both individually and as a firm financially to the mission. We do this because we believe in the basic principles of justice, like impoverished children should not be forced to live in homes contaminated with lead paint. Justice is better served when everyone has a lawyer at their side when faced with eviction from their home. Poverty should not be a barrier to a proper education, nor should poverty be a barrier to a person escaping a domestic violence situation. And we also believe that the legal community has a responsibility to ensure that the court system is meaningfully available to everyone to protect basic human rights. I suspect that each of you believes this and believes in these same principles because you're here today. So I want to give each of you an opportunity to pledge your support to legal aid, and I want to give you an opportunity to double the impact of doing so. On your table, you will find pledge cards. For each dollar that is pledged in support of legal aid today, Wickens, Herzler, Panza will match the donation dollar for dollar. Nothing needs to be paid today. Just simply make a pledge of support, follow through later, and our lawyers will match it. If you believe as we do, please make a pledge and help my partners at Wickens, Herzler, Panza pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to Wickens, Herzler, Panza, and thanks to all of you who will participate in this match, helping Wickens pass it on. Now it is my really true honor to turn the microphone over to Jim Sandman, President of the Legal Services Corporation. Many of you will remember that Jim delivered the keynote address at this luncheon in 2017. He shared with us then his legal aid story, which is long, deep, and inspirational. And I personally have the greatest respect and admiration for Jim and for his leadership. Jim?
Thank you, Colleen. Good afternoon. It is an honor and a personal thrill to introduce my friend, our keynote speaker today, Chief Justice Nathan Hecht of the Supreme Court of Texas. Chief Justice Hecht has been a judge since he was 32, starting as a trial judge, then as a judge of the Texas Court of Appeals, and since 1989, a justice on the Texas Supreme Court. He is the longest-serving Supreme Court justice in Texas history. Since 2013, he has been Chief Justice. He is currently president of the National Conference of Chief Justices, the organization of the Chief Justices and Judges of the highest courts of the 50 states and the U.S. territories. There is no stronger or more effective advocate for access to justice in the United States today than Chief Justice Hecht. He regards the inability of low-income people to get access to civil legal services as a threat to the rule of law and as a threat to the integrity of the civil justice system itself, and he speaks out. He uses the power and prestige of his position and the perspective of his platform as Chief Justice to decry the consequences for the administration of justice and the quality of justice when people cannot get access to legal assistance. He has personally persuaded the Texas legislature, a body he describes as conservative, to provide significant funding for civil legal aid, and they do it year after year after year, and it is not controversial. He walks the halls of Congress to urge senators and representatives to increase funding for the Legal Services Corporation. He travels the country speaking out. Chief Justice Hecht believes to the bottom of his soul that access to justice is a righteous cause. It is a cause as old as the scriptures, reflected in the commandment of Deuteronomy that justice shall you pursue, and in the prayer of the prophet Amos that justice might roll down like waters. He knows access to justice to be a nonpartisan value, a fundamental American value. In this, he personifies and he passes on the vision of the founders of our country and the framers of our Constitution, the vision of Thomas Jefferson, who said, "The most sacred of the duties of government is to do equal and impartial justice to all its citizens." The vision of Alexander Hamilton, who said, "The first duty of society is justice." The vision of James Madison, who wrote in Federalist number 51, "Justice is the end of government. It is the end of civil society. It ever has been and ever will be pursued until it be obtained, or until liberty be lost in the pursuit." Chief Justice Hecht is proof of the difference one person can make when he sees injustice, when he speaks out, because this is our country. He is proof of the difference one person can make when he deploys every ounce of his being to protecting our democracy and passing it on. Please welcome Chief Justice Nathan Hecht.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks very much. Going to get Jim to do my obituary. No time soon, I hope, but when it comes to that, several of you have asked me, are you running for governor? Or are you running for president? I guess because of your speaker last year, and the answer is no. But very pleased to be here, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's a great privilege to be here in Cleveland, particularly on this cause. And thank you for all the good work that you are doing We got to visit last night a little while with many of the lawyers who represent clients for the society and those who help administer and develop programs. It's very impressive. In Texas, as you know, I'm sure, everything is bigger. So just last month, our Access to Justice Foundation had its 35th anniversary dinner in Austin, and author John Grisham was our keynote. John is a very outspoken voice for legal aid and access to justice in our country, and has written a book that features as one of its heroes a legal aid lawyer. So John was there, and we got the official count was about 640. So this is about half again bigger than that, and I'm embarrassed, I have to tell you. But I'll go back and tell them if they can do this in Cleveland, we can do it in Texas as well. It should be an inspiration. As Jim said, my duties take me all over the country. And speaking for access to justice, this is a great priority of the Supreme Court of Texas, has been since before I got there. The Supreme Court adopted the IOLTA program and then made it mandatory, as so many other states were doing. Helped moot the lawyers who argued the IOLTA case in the U.S. Supreme Court to get a good result there. And so this has been a priority for my court. I know it is for courts across the country. As Jim said, I'm president of the Conference of Chief Justices, and about every other year or so, we adopt resolutions supporting the Legal Services Corporation specifically and access to justice generally, because we do believe that they are essential to the integrity of the rule of law. And we're glad to do it. I'm glad to work with Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor here in Ohio. I got to meet Justices Donnelly and Stewart a little earlier. And so pleased that the court here shares the commitment that the Texas court and all the other courts do. Now, the society here is well known for its excellent and innovative efforts. And from a national perspective, they are very impressive. The rest of us can learn so much from the successes here. And so with all of that, and with a crowd like this that you can barely see the end of, this must be a victory celebration, right? You would think. But hardly that. We were asked on the NPR interview this morning, has the justice gap closed? And the frank answer is probably not very much, maybe not at all. And while we don't want to, while we hope this is not the case, maybe it's even widening. More and more, or at least as much, people across the United States meet real legal problems that they struggle with and need help resolving. And so the gap there remains. It's not that we haven't closed it for want of passion. Last night when we were visiting, you could just see the passion, as you always do, in the lawyers and administrators who work for the society and the dedication that they have brought to their jobs. It's not for want of ideas or for implementation of them. New ideas are floating up all of the time, and people are working very hard to use technology, to use different approaches to the delivery of legal services to make sure that they reach as far as they can. And it's not certainly for one of clients. Again, we have more clients than we can represent. But part of the problem is that, and probably the core of it, is that we lack resources. Over the years, historically, the legal aid programs have been the expectation of the bar. It is part of the noble profession of practicing law that you give something back, that you represent clients pro bono publico, a Latin expression. Leave it to the lawyers to market their great contribution to history by a Latin expression. But nevertheless, it means for the public good, and we shorten that to pro bono, but we mean not just for good. Of course, it helps the client, but for the public good. But lawyers have no more obligation to represent the poor for free than grocers have to feed them for free, or contractors to house them for free, or doctors to treat them for free, even though many doctors do. It really is a societal problem, and society should recognize its responsibility. And so we have turned increasingly, as time has passed, to some kind of public funding of our mission of access to justice. And so why are we only as successful as we have been? I'll give you my 3 answers. And some of these we're working on very hard, but for some of them we have a lot to do. First, we must explain our mission better. The most common question I am asked when I show up for access to justice support events, the most common question I'm asked is, what do you do? What is access to justice about? I said, well, it's about providing legal services for the poor. Well, like who, for example? Well, veterans and children and the elderly and people who are suffering from disabilities. Well, like who does these cases? A governor of a state, I'm going to say it wasn't Texas and wasn't Ohio, said to me one time, you know, the reason I don't support access to justice is because it's just supporting lawyers who can't get a job. I said, no, sir, that's not right. Actually, our legal aid lawyers are some of the best lawyers in the country. But there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. What kind of cases do we handle? Well, we handle housing and employment, benefits and probate, family cases, I'm sorry to say, it's so many family cases. But these are cases when people are in distress and trying to just survive. You can imagine, if you just think about it for a second, the stress of being deployed in the military, where you're told where to sleep, you're told what to do, your check is deposited in your family's bank account back home somewhere, everything else is on the military schedule, and suddenly you're back where there aren't pipe bombs and there isn't the threat of death all of the time. You're living in the society that you left to defend, and even an apartment lease just seems like a hill too high to climb. This is common for so many people who seek legal aid. These are obstacles which may seem simple to us, probably do to everybody in this room, but can be life challenging to the people who seek legal aid. So we need to tell better stories about that so that people understand what it is that we do. So the one that we just saw involving the child. Some of us have great, powerful stories, life-changing stories about what happened to us when we sought legal aid. And these stories are very moving to people, and it helps them understand why this is so important, what we do. But we just need to do more of it. So many times in the legislative session in Texas, I can go there and talk until I'm blue in the face, and maybe I'll get somewhere and maybe I won't. But a couple years ago, we do this every year, but a couple years ago we brought in a legal aid client, and she told her story, and she got to the end of it, and she asked me to come up to the podium, and she said, with everybody standing there and the cameras rolling, she said, "You tell your colleagues they saved my life." Well, we can rest our case at that point. That's about as strong an argument as you can make. But we need to be putting a strong face on access to justice, and we need to be doing this especially with younger lawyers, people who are just coming through law school. And we try to do this in Texas, and I know you try to do it elsewhere, to challenge them to see their responsibility in helping to do this important work. Second, we must evangelize policymakers. And I use a religious word there because it describes the zeal that should mark our efforts. So many times when we go to policymakers, we preach to the choir. We feel very comfortable talking to the people that we know support us anyway. It's going to the other side that is the challenge. But access to justice is not a partisan issue. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's not a political issue. It's not liberal or conservative. It's about good government. And so we need everybody who is involved in the government to see the importance of what we do. Jim and I have trudged the halls of Congress over and over again, and I'll just stop right here for a second and say the most important thing you can do, as far as I'm concerned, before the day is over, is go home, go back to your office, and write your representatives in Congress. Just say, you know, I was at this program. It was made me realize all over again how important this is. I hope you'll support it. Thank you very much. Don't be combative and say, you jerk, why don't you vote for this? Win them over, but they need to hear from people. So the former chairman of the House Appropriations Committee told me one time, he said, you know why people don't listen to you? You know why they're not moved? Because the only time I hear about access to justice is from lawyers. And frankly, we don't always care that much about what lawyers think. Now, you get a used car salesman in my district to call me up here and say, this is what you need to be spending the public's money on, I'm going to listen to that because that's a real person coming from real life in my district telling me what they need. So more and more, we need to engage policymakers. We've done this in the Texas legislature, as Jim was kind enough to say, to good effect. And why haven't we done it more over the years? I don't know. Maybe it's because so many times legal aid involves suing the government, and that puts us in a oppositional position to them. But that's not always the case, and usually, as Colleen just described for us, when we do feel like we have to do it, we're doing it because we think we're doing it for both our good, and we hope we end up in a better place. After all, the point is to win, not just to engage. And so we need to do that better with our policy makers. And then finally, we must show non-lawyers how access to justice is important to them. We've not done this very well in the past, but we're doing it more. The Legal Services Corporation has what they call a Leaders Council that has a lot of lawyers on it, but also a lot of non-lawyers, including Hank Aaron, for example. So, you know, if you don't believe the General Counsel of Merck, how about Hank Aaron? John Grisham's on that group. And these are people, John's a lawyer, but these are people who speak to the issue from society's point of view. How does this help us? Well, because if we have stronger people who are able to manage their legal affairs, who are able to get through probate, who are able to save their homes, who are able to get through issues involving their children and stay productive members of society, then we'll all be better off for that. We've done economic studies. I know Ohio's done one, Texas has done one, New York's done one. These are quite common, but I use them all the time. My friend Chief Judge Lippman in New York used to say he thought it was the most powerful tool that we had to take to non-lawyer policymakers and say, you see here, this is having an economic benefit on our communities in our state. That's why you need to support it. And policymakers listen to those approaches. I would talk to a friend of mine for a long time who was in Congress, and I wasn't making much progress with him. So I asked a businessman in his district if he would take my friend to lunch. And he said, you know, that's not really my thing, politics and stuff. I said, well, if you would just look at the materials, and then you know, if you think it's worthwhile, I wish you'd take him to lunch and talk to him about it. Well, this is a businessman in Houston, very well-to-do, very savvy about the issues going on in our communities. Called me back and said, I had no idea that was the case. I'll be happy to. When the American Academy of Arts and Sciences began to help us a couple of years ago, I was at a meeting. I don't know if you know about the American Academy. There are a few lawyers and government people in it, but mostly it's artists and scientists, like their name suggests. And I was listening to a presentation. I was sitting back toward the back, and behind me there was a row of about 6 or 7 physicians, and they were all in their 70s, and they were sitting there listening to this presentation by Chief Judge Lippman, and several of them turned to each other, because I could hear them, I was sitting right in front of them, and said, I had no idea that was the case. Did you? And I said, oh, I've never heard of this. And they all said, well, something really needs to be done about this. Why don't we do something about it? And since then, the American Academy has done a great deal to bring attention to our issues and to stir up support for us in the non-lawyer community. So Justice Marshall said, speak out. If you've read much about Justice Marshall, take, for example, Gilbert King's book, Devil in the Grove. It came out several years ago. It's a story about some of his litigation in the South. But not only did Justice Marshall speak out, he spoke out smart. He was always the quintessential lawyer trying to figure out not just how to speak out in court, but positions that he could take to win. And that's what took him as far as he did. He was courageous in speaking out, but he was also dedicated to trying to make the place better at the end of his time. So, making the promise of justice real to the most vulnerable among us is compassionate and rewarding. It strengthens society and the government. It is essential to the integrity of the rule of law, and it's simply the right thing to do. We know this. While we do the work of legal aid, we must convince others to help us to narrow the gap in our country. We must speak out. God bless you for all you do in the service of this great cause. Pass it on.
Thank you, Chief Justice Hecht, and can we have one more round of applause for the Chief Justice? Thank you all. Thank you all for coming today. That concludes our program for today. Pass it on.
This land is yours.